The common Odele is a biological species that derives from the Boötes constellation from their presumably destroyed home plant, Tigum. Unfortunately, this is not their real form. Their body is the result of experimentation on the slave members of the Mansevan caste under the Urkish dynasty. The experimenting process took around 2 years and has forever affected the Odelic people and degraded them to the form that you see now. It is titled the Pro-Mansevan form. The Odelic people have no mouth and no nostrils, thus depriving them of all oxygen and methane needed to function. This is the inner stump of the Odele. The stump is just that of a torso for the Odele and contains over 80% of the important organs of the Odelic body, needed to function correctly. The inner stump is protected by a layer of glassy rough skin and shielded innerly by a slim coating of lemon bone. Lemon bone is the main skeleton material for the body of the Odele and is formed by storing dried-off methane gas within hollow chamber, surrounding the outer inside stump, while the ligand sava, if exposed to dried methane, begins producing calcium and transporting it into the hollow spaces. Within the chambers, the calcium reacts to the methane and solidifies, creating young lemon bone that surrounds the inner structure of the Odele, and later ages into a fine yellow print after inner exposure to continued production of drying methane gas, hence the name lemon bone. However, if threatened or in danger, neuronical transmitters will descend into the ligand sava, giving the Odele a type of adrenaline kick and overall causing a great tremble inside the structure as the ligand sava and methane big OM begin producing at a rapid pace as the body shakes. Both the sudden methane production and shaking will slowly but surely exhaust the Odele as more neuronical transmitters continue to disturb the ligand sava. Within the sudden pace, the temperature inside the structure rises in order to speed up drying of methane gas and calcium reactions. Within this new and adrenaline-kicked-up environment, the calcium and methane react quickly and create a new coating of a proto-lemon bone behind the already constructed lemon bone. However, within its rush, it is weak and deprived of actually hardening in time. This proto-lemon bone is nicknamed fast bone for its quickly generating ability within the pacing environment. However, without its time to dry, it is considered weak and inferior to the actual lemon bone, as it is given less time to harden. Fast bone is built behind the lemon bone. Thanks to its less time to dry and pacing, fast bone is not as strong as the coating of lemon bone, but is far more regenerative within the new environment. However, the lemon bone does not gain any of the regenerative effects in the environment. Fast bone can be easily destroyed with a few strikes. However, if both lemon bone and fast bone have openings, the methane will leak out, spilling out within massive amounts, creating a flammable vapor around the opening that can expand quickly as the big OM continues production within the threatened moment. But, after the threatened moment passes, the fast bone's materials will dissolve back into the lemon bone, creating an expansion of bones and pushing out the stump to a wider area, thus causing the creation of muscles to keep the skin free yet tight as the stump expands. This is how some straddles form. And the energy used to create the fast bone may be given back tenfold by the generous ligand sava, as overall the structures begins to improve itself after the threatened moment passes. As the stump continues to expand, so does neuronical activity thanks to the ligand sava. The methane big OM organ is the producer of methane and oxygen for the Odele and is shielded behind the lemon bone, and is separate into an inner and outer shell. The big OM has an overwhelmingly slimy and oozing surface and produces a gust of converted that keeps the body functioning. The inner shell of the methane big OM has 2 chambers within it, one that produces methane to export as a gas that energizes the body, and the other is a chamber of dying off methane gas that occasionally leaves the chambers to wander around the outer shell, then get back into the chambers. The methane chambers of the inner shell gain incoming free-flowing nutrients from the ligand sava. Specially designed cells within the methane chambers will break down the nutrients into organic material that can be converted into organic methane gas that is exported out into the structure. Usually, the methane big OM will pump out stored up methane gas within a large mass, converting it into energy for the body. This occurs on a much slower scale when the body is relaxed, though if in a threatened position, the pumping will be faster, giving some energy. Though, within the threatened position, the exportation of energy will not be as massive when it is relaxed, since the pumping is rushed and commonly inaccurate to its needs. But the energy will be constantly regenerating in the alert position, causing a short series of stutters of energy. The oxygen chambers of the methane big OM recycle and used energy from the pumps and are given back into the methane big OM, specifically put back into the oxygen chambers, where it is kept for some time in a cycling environment to refine it to an organic material capable of becoming oxygen. The organic materials created inside the oxygen chambers are then exported out for a little gathering on the outer shell of the methane big OM, gathering up the slime and ooze and turning it into a form of small controlled algae to be taken back into the oxygen chambers. The type of algae that is now stored inside the oxygen chambers is then torn down by the sharing specially designed cells from the neighboring chamber, the methane chamber. The cells dissolve into the algae and make it a collected mass within the chambers. The organic mass is then destroyed by its own cells again and is at last emitted as oxygen. Within the remaining debris are also pumped out within a short series. Within its free-floating time, it'll either land on the Ligensava, or commonly land back on the outer shells of the methane big OM. The methane big OM organ also acts as the lungs for the Odelore that relies on itself, using the inner shell to create the energy that it needs to export throughout the body to keep it functioning and alive. When the muscles of the Odelore relax, more oxygen is generated. The outer shell contains more of a protective sludge of dried up goo and other things. Not much is known about the shell because examiners always have it slip away from their hands, even on the most flat surface. It's that slippery and wet. The Ligensava acts as the heart of the Odelore, while also serving as a multifunctional organ that generates and decomposes things needed for the structure. It also extends out as a wide system of large veins throughout the body. It is responsible for connections all across the body. While having no real base for the heart, the overall structure of the Ligensava is just as well ordered within a wide variety of hardened cells that are formed inside the veins that are capable of creating other materials inside the veins that can be exported to the rest of the body. This is where the multipurpose organ part comes in. This phenomenon inside the Ligensava is called innerwachsen. As the entirety of the cells rely on the overall structure of the veins and the state of the stump itself, though it is an unknown way how Ligensava functions within many ways. This is presumably because of the Mansevan penalty genetic experimentation on the Odelic people, in which the Mansevans tried to benefit as much as they could by exploiting the inner body in such a way, though they made it impossible to observe more of the Ligensava to ward off copycats. The Mansevan logo inside the stump itself serves as a calling card left by the Mansevan Confederacy, whilst also being there as a, if found, return TO, using their emblem. However, the Mansevan Confederacy has been dissolved right after their major civil war, so yeah. No returning point. Stump blood is gray, that goes for the rest of the body too. Probably because of the inner coloring of the skin and the fine aging cells beaming off the Ligensava turning it gray.